Welcome to Executive Order Watch.
The immigrants have arrived.
I know. I have the package.
Morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is. I hope you're doing well. You're here with E-Millions, and what we're going to be doing, we're going over the big, beautiful bill, and we're going to have it read out for the most part, so we know every word that was said of. So, if you're driving, you can listen to it. If you're walking, you can listen to it. If you're running, I guess you can do that too. If you're driving a big wheel, this is definitely for you. All right, so let's go ahead and get to it.
$110 million for rolled steel and fabrication facility for shipbuilding industrial base. $400 million for expansion of collaborative campus for naval shipbuilding. $450 million for application of autonomy and artificial intelligence to naval shipbuilding. $500 million for the adoption of advanced manufacturing techniques in the shipbuilding industrial base. $500 million for additional dry dock capability. $50 million for the expansion of cold spray repair technologies. $450 million for additional maritime industrial workforce development programs. $750 million for additional supplier development across the naval shipbuilding industrial base. $250 million for additional advanced manufacturing processes across the naval shipbuilding industrial base. $4.6 billion for a second Virginia-class submarine in fiscal year 2026. $5.4 billion for 2 additional guided missile destroyer ships. $160 million for advanced procurement for landing ship medium. $1,803,940,000 for procurement of landing ship medium. $295 million for development of a second landing craft utility shipyard and production of additional landing craft utility. $100 million for the procurement of commercial logistics ships. $600 million for the lease or purchase of new ships through the National Defense Sealift Fund. $2.725 billion for the procurement of TO oilers. $500 million for cost to complete for rescue and salvage ships. $300 million for production of ship tow-shore connectors. $695 million for the implementation of a multi-ship amphibious warship contract. $80 million for accelerated development of vertical launch system, reloading at sea. $250 million for expansion of Navy corrosion control programs. 113. $159 million for leasing of ships for Marine Corps operations. $1,534 million for expansion of small unmanned surface vessel production. $1,800 million for expansion of medium unmanned surface vessel production. $1,300 million for expansion of unmanned underwater vehicle production. $188,360,000 for the development and testing of maritime mine robotic autonomous systems and enabling technologies. $174 million for the development of a test resource management center robotic autonomous systems proving ground. $250 million for the development, production, and integration of wave-powered unmanned underwater vehicles. $2,100 million for San Antonio-class amphibious transport dock. $3,700 million for America-class amphibious assault ship. 114. XC 20008. Enhancement Department of Defense 1 resources for integrated air and MISS 23. NGMDT4, in addition to amounts otherwise available, 5 there are appropriated to the Secretary of Defense for FIS 6 Cal year 2025, out of any money in the Treasury not other 7Ys appropriated to remain available until September 30th, 8/2029-9. $183 million for Missile Defense Agency 10 special programs. 11. $250 million for development and testing 12 of directed energy capabilities by the Undersec 13 RETARI for research and engineering. 14. $300 million for classified military space, 15 superiority programs run by the Strategic Capability 16 Ties Office. 17. $500 million for national security space, 18 launch infrastructure. 19. $2 billion for air moving target Indian 20K military satellites. 21. $400 million for expansion of multi-serve 22 ICE advanced capability hypersonic test bed Pro 23 gram. 24. $5,600 million for development of space 25 based and boost phase intercept capabilities. 26. 115. $2,400 million for the development of Milli-1 Terry non-kinetic missile defense effects. And 2. $7,200 million for the development, procurement, and integration of military space-based force sensors. LHD, in addition to 6 amounts otherwise available, there are appropriated to the 7 Secretary of Defense for fiscal year 2025, out of any 8 money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated to remain available until September 30th, 2029, 10. $2,200 million for acceleration of 11 hypersonic defense systems. 12. $800 million for accelerated development. 13. And deployment of next-generation intercontinental 14 ballistic missile defense systems. 15. $408 million for Army space and strategic 16 missile test range infrastructure restoration and 17 modernization in the United States Indo-Pacific 18 Command Area of Operations west of the Inter-19 National Dateline. 20. $1,975 million for improved ground-based 21 missile defense radars. And 22. $530 million for the design and construct 23 of Missile Defense Agency Missile Instrumenta 24 range safety ship. 25. 116. SEC 20004. Enhancement of Department of Defense resources for munitions and defense supply chain resiliency. A. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there are appropriated to the Secretary of Defense for fiscal year 2025, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, to remain available until September 30th, 2029. $400 million for the development, production, and integration of Navy and Air Force long-range anti-ship missiles. $380 million for production capacity expansion for Navy and Air Force long-range anti-ship missiles. $490 million for the development, production, and integration of Navy and Air Force long-range air-to-surface missiles. $94 million for the development, production, and integration of alternative Navy and Air Force long-range air-to-surface missiles. $630 million for the development, production, and integration of long-range Navy air defense and anti-ship missiles. $688 million for the development, production, and integration of long-range multi-service cruise missiles. 117. $250 million for production capacity expansion and supplier base strengthening of long-range multi-service cruise missiles. $70 million for the development, production, and integration of short-range Navy and Marine Corps anti-ship missiles. $100 million for the development of an anti-ship seeker for short-range Army ballistic missiles. $175 million for production, capacity expansion for next-generation Army medium-range ballistic missiles. $50 million for the mitigation of diminishing manufacturing sources for medium-range air-to-air missiles. $250 million for the procurement of medium-range air-to-air missiles. $225 million for the expansion of production capacity for medium-range air-to-air missiles. $50 million for the development of second sources for components of short-range air-to-air missiles. $325 million for production, capacity improvements for air-launched anti-radiation missiles. 118. $50 million for the accelerated development of Army next-generation medium-range anti-ship ballistic missiles. $114 million for the production of Army next-generation medium-range ballistic missiles. $300 million for the production of Army medium-range ballistic missiles. $85 million for the accelerated development of Army long-range ballistic missiles. $400 million for the production of heavyweight torpedoes. $200 million for the development, procurement, and integration of commercial heavyweight torpedoes. $70 million for the improvement of heavyweight torpedo maintenance activities. $200 million for the production of lightweight torpedoes. $500 million for the development, procurement, and integration of maritime mines. $50 million for the development, procurement, and integration of new underwater explosives. $55 million for the development, procurement, and integration of lightweight multi-mission torpedoes. 119. $80 million for the production of sonobuoys. $150 million for the development, procurement, and integration of air-delivered long-range maritime mines. $61 million for the acceleration of Navy expeditionary loitering munitions deployment. $50 million for the acceleration of one-way attack unmanned aerial systems with advanced autonomy. $3,500 million for grants made pursuant to the Industrial Base Fund, established under Section 4817 of Title 10, United States Code. $1 billion for grants and purchase commitments made pursuant to the Industrial Base Fund, established under Section 4817 of Title 10, United States Code. $1 billion for the expansion of the one-way attack unmanned aerial systems industrial base. $200 million for investments in solid rocket motor industrial base through the Industrial Base Fund, established under Section 4817 of Title 10 United States Code. 120. $400 million for investments in the emerging solid rocket motor industrial base through the Industrial Base Fund, established under Section 4817 of Title 10 United States Code. $42 million for investments in second sources for large-diameter solid rocket motors for hypersonic missiles. $1 billion for the creation of next-generation automated munitions production factories. $170 million for the development of advanced radar depot for repair, testing, and production of radar and electronic warfare systems. million for the expansion of the Department of Defense Industrial Base Policy Analysis Workforce. $30,300,000 for the repair of Army missiles. $100 million for the production of small and medium ammunition. $2,500,000,000 for additional activities to improve the United States production of critical minerals through the National Defense Stockpile authorized by Subchapter 3 of Chapter 5 of Title 50 of the United States Code. 121. $10 million for the expansion of the Department of Defense Armaments Cooperation Workforce. $500 million for the expansion of the Defense Exportability Features Program. $350 million for production of Navy long-range air and missile defense interceptors. $93 million for replacement of Navy long-range air and missile defense interceptors. $100 million for development of a second solid rocket motor source for Navy air defense and anti-ship missiles. $65 million for expansion of production capacity of missile defense long-range anti-ballistic missiles. $225 million for expansion of production capacity for Navy air defense and anti-ship missiles. $103,300,000 for expansion of depot-level maintenance facility for Navy long-range air and missile defense interceptors. $18 million for creation of domestic source for guidance section of Navy short-range air defense missiles. 122. $65 million for integration of Army medium-range air and missile defense interceptor with Navy ships. $176,100,000 for production of Army long-range movable missile defense radar. $100 million for accelerated fielding of Army short-range gun-based air and missile defense system. $40 million for development of low-cost alternatives to air and missile defense interceptors. $50 million for acceleration of Army next-generation shoulder-fired air defense system. $91 million for production of Army next-generation shoulder-fired air defense system. $500 million for development, production, and integration of counter-unmanned aerial systems programs. $350 million for development, production, and integration of non-kinetic counter-unmanned aerial systems programs. $250 million for development, production, and integration of land-based counter-unmanned aerial systems programs. 123. $200 million for development, production, and integration of ship-based counter-unmanned air 2IL systems programs, and 3. $400 million for acceleration of 4 hypersonic strike programs. A. In addition to amounts other 6Ys available, there is appropriated to the Secretary of 7 Defense, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, to remain available until September 30th. 9/2029, $500 million to the Department of Defense Cred Tenant Program account to carry out the Capital Assistance 11 program, including loans, loan guarantees, and technical 12 assistance. Established under Section 149 of Title 13 United States Code for critical minerals and related in 14 industries and projects, including related covered Tech 15 knowledge categories, both domestically and internationally, 16 provided that 17. Such amounts are available to subsidize 18 gross obligations for the principal amount of direct 19 loans and total loan principal, any part of which is 20 to be guaranteed, not to exceed $100 billion, 21 and 22. Such amounts are available to cover all costs 23 and expenditures as provided under Section 24-149 of Title 10 United States Code. 25. 124. SEC 20005, Enhancement of Department of Defense One Resources for Scaling Low-Cost Web 2-ons into Production. In addition to amounts other 4Ys available, there are appropriated to the Secretary of 5 Defense for fiscal year 2025, out of any money in the 6th Treasury not otherwise appropriated, to remain available 7 until September 30th, 2029, 8. $25 million for the Office of Strategic 9 Capital Global Technology Scout Program. 10. $1,100 million for the expansion of the 11 Small Unmanned Aerial System Industrial Base. 12. $400 million for the development and to 13 deployment of the Joint Fires Network and associated 14 joint battle management capabilities. 15. $400 million for the expansion of Advanced 16 Command and Control Tools to Combatant Command 17 and military departments. 18. $100 million for the development of shared 19 secure facilities for the Defendustrial Base. 20. $50 million for the creation of additional 21 Defense Innovation Unit on-ramp hubs. 22. $250 million for the acceleration of STRA 23 TGIC capabilities office programs. 24. 125. $650 million for the expansion of Mission Capabilities Office joint prototyping and experimentation activities for military innovation. $500 million for the accelerated development and integration of advanced 5G, 6G technologies for military use. $25 million for testing of simultaneous transmit and receive technology for military spectrum agility. $750 million for the acceleration of innovative military logistics and energy capability development and deployment. $120 million for the acceleration of development of small, portable modular nuclear reactors for military use. $50 million for the development, procurement, and integration of high-altitude stratospheric balloons for military use. $120 million for the development, procurement, and integration of long-endurance, unmanned aerial systems for surveillance. $40 million for the development, procurement, and integration of alternative positioning and navigation technology to enable military operations in contested electromagnetic environments. 126. $1 billion for the expansion of programs to accelerate the procurement and fielding of innovative technologies. $90 million for the development of reusable hypersonic technology for military strikes and intelligence. $2 billion for the expansion of Defense Innovation Unit scaling of commercial technology for military use. $500 million to prevent delays in delivery of attributable autonomous military capabilities. $1 billion for the development, procurement, and integration of low-cost cruise missiles. $500 million for the development, procurement, and integration of exportable low-cost cruise missiles. $124 million for improvements to Test Resource Management Center artificial intelligence capabilities. $145 million for the development of artificial intelligence to enable one-way attack, unmanned aerial systems, and naval systems. $250 million for the development of the Test Resource Management Center digital test environment. 127. $250 million for the advancement of the One Artificial Intelligence ecosystem. 2. $250 million for the expansion of Cyber 3 Command Artificial Intelligence lines of effort. 4. $250 million for the acceleration of the 5 Quantum Benchmarking Initiative. 6. $500 million for the expansion and Accel 7 iteration of qualification activities and technical data 8 management to enhance competition in defense and 9 industrial base 10. $400 million for the expansion of the D11 Fence Manufacturing Technology Program, and 12. $685 million for military cryptographic 13 modernization activities. In addition to amounts other 15 Ys available, there are appropriated to the Secretary of 16 Defense. Out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise 17 appropriated to remain available until September 30th. 18-20-29. $1 billion to Department of Defense 19 Credit Program account to carry out the Capital Assist 20 ANTS program, including loans, loan guarantees, and Tech 21 NICL assistance established under Section 149 of Title 2210 United States Code, provided that 23. Such amounts are available to subsidize 24 gross obligations for the principal amount of Direct 25. 128. Loans and total loan principal, any part of which is one to be guaranteed, not to exceed $100 billion. 2 and 3 such amounts are available to cover all costs for and expenditures as provided under Section 5149 of Title 10, United States Code. 6 SSE 2. Enhancement of Department of Defense 7 resources for improving the FI-8 sciency and cybersecurity of the D9 Department of Defense, in addition to amounts otherwise available. There are 11 appropriated to the Secretary of Defense for fiscal year 12-2025 out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise A13 appropriated to remain available until September 30th, 2029. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 4, 25. $150 million for business systems replacement to accelerate the audits of the financial statements of the Department of Defense pursuant to Chapter 9A and Section 2222 of Title 10, United States Code. $200 million for the deployment of automation and artificial intelligence to accelerate the audits of the financial statements of the Department of Defense pursuant to Chapter 9A and Section 2222 of Title 10, United States Code. 129. $10 million for the improvement of the one budgetary and programmatic infrastructure of the 2 Office of the Secretary of Defense, and 3. $20 million for Defense Cybersecurity programs of the Defense Advanced Research Projects 5 Agency. CC 20007. Enhancement of Department of Defense 7 resources for air superiority. 8. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there are 9 appropriated to the Secretary of Defense for fiscal year 10-2025. Out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise A11 appropriated to remain available until September 30th, 2029, 13. $3,150,000,000 to increase F-15EX Air 14 craft production, 15. $361,220,000 to prevent the retirement of 16 F-22 aircraft, 17. $127,460,000 to prevent the retirement of 18 F-15E aircraft, 19. $50 million to accelerate installation of F-20. 16 electronic warfare capability, 21. $116 million for C-17A mobility aircraft, 22 connectivity, 23. $84 million for KC-135 mobility aircraft, 24 connectivity, 25. 130. $440 million to increase C-130J production, $474 million to increase EA-37B production, $300 million for Air Force classified programs. $678 million to accelerate the Collaborative Combat Aircraft Program. $400 million to accelerate production of the F-47 aircraft. $230 million for Navy classified programs. $500 million accelerate the F-8X aircraft. $100 million for production of advanced aerial sensors. $160 million to accelerate V-22 nacelle improvement. $100 million to accelerate production of MQ-25 aircraft. SEC 20008, Enhancement of Resources for Nuclear. 131. In the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, to remain available until September 30th, 2029. $1,500 million for risk reduction activities for the Sentinel Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Program. $4,500 million for acceleration of the B-21 long-range bomber aircraft. $500 million for improvements to the Minuteman III Intercontinental Ballistic Missile System. $100 million for capability enhancements to intercontinental ballistic missile reentry vehicles. $148 million for the expansion of D5 missile motor production. $400 million to accelerate the development of Trident D5 LE-2 submarine-launched ballistic missiles. $2 billion to accelerate the development, procurement, and integration of the nuclear-armed sea-launched cruise missile. $62 million to convert Ohio-class submarine tubes to accept additional missiles. $22 million to enhance nuclear deterrence through classified programs. 132. $168 million to accelerate the production one of the Survivable Airborne Operations Center Pro-2 3. $65 million to accelerate the modernize a portion of nuclear command, control, and communications. And 6. $210,300,000 for the increased production 7 of MH-139 helicopters. NNSAA, in addition to 9 amounts otherwise available. There are appropriated to the 10 Administrator of the National Nuclear Security Administration for fiscal year 2025, out of any money in the 12 Treasury not otherwise appropriated, to remain available 13 until September 30th, 2029, 14. $200 million to perform National Nuclear 15 Security Administration Phase 1 studies, pursuant to 16 Section 3211 of the National Nuclear Security Ad 17 Administration Act, 18. $540 million to address deferred May 19 NANCE and repair needs of the National Nuclear State 20 Security Administration, pursuant to Section 3211 of 21, the National Nuclear Security Administration Act 22-23. $1 billion to accelerate the Construct 24 of National Nuclear Security Administration FA 25. 133. Facilities pursuant to Section 3211 of the National Nuclear Security Administration Act. $400 million to accelerate the development, procurement, and integration of the warhead for the nuclear-armed sea-launched cruise missile, pursuant to Section 3211 of the National Nuclear Security Administration Act. $500 million to accelerate primary capability modernization, pursuant to Section 3211 of the National Nuclear Security Administration Act. $500 million to accelerate secondary capability modernization, pursuant to Section 3211 of the National Nuclear Security Administration Act. $100 million to accelerate domestic uranium enrichment centrifuge deployment for defense purposes, pursuant to Section 3211 of the National Nuclear Security Administration Act. Sec 2009, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources to improve capabilities of United States Indo-Pacific Command. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there are appropriated to the Secretary of Defense for fiscal year 134, 2025, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, to remain available until September 30th, 2029, $365 million for Army exercises and operations in the Western Pacific Area of Operations. $53 million for Special Operations Command exercises and operations in the Western Pacific Area of Operations. $47 million for Marine Corps exercises and operations in Western Pacific Area of Operations. $90 million for Air Force exercises and operations in Western Pacific Area of Operations. $532,600,000 for the Pacific Air Force Biennial Large-Scale Exercise. $19 million for the development of naval small craft capabilities. $35 million for military additive manufacturing capabilities in the United States Indo-Pacific Command Area of Operations west of the International Dateline. $450 million for the development of airfields within the area of operations of United States Indo-Pacific Command. 135. $1,100,000,000 for development of infrastructure within the area of operations of United States Indo-Pacific Command. $124 million for mission networks for United States Indo-Pacific Command. $100 million for Air Force regionally based cluster pre-position base kits. $25 million to explore the revitalization of existing Arctic naval infrastructure. $90 million for the accelerated development of non-kinetic capabilities. $20 million for United States Indo-Pacific Command military exercises. $23 million for anti-submarine sonar arrays, $30 million for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities for United States Africa Command. $30 million for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities for United States Indo-Pacific Command. $400 million for the development, coordination, and deployment of economic competition effects within the Department of Defense. 136. $10 million for the expansion of Department of Defense workforce for economic competition. $1 billion for offensive cyber operations. $500 million for personnel and operations, costs associated with forces assigned to United States Indo-Pacific Command. $300 million for the procurement of mesh network communications capabilities for Special Operations Command Pacific. $850 million for the replenishment of military articles. $200 million for acceleration of Guam Defense System Program. $4,029,000,000 for classified military space superiority programs. $68 million for Space Force facilities improvements. $100 million for ground moving target indicator military satellites. And $528 million for Dark and Silent Barker military space situational awareness programs. 137. 2010, Enhancement of Department Defense Resources for improving the readiness of the armed forces. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there are appropriated to the Secretary of Defense for fiscal year 2025, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated to remain available until September 30th, 2029, $1,400,000,000 for a pilot program on OPN-8 maritime spares and repair roadable pool. $700 million for a pilot program on OPN-8 maritime spares and repair roadable pool for amphibious ships. $2,118,000,000 for spares and repairs to keep Air Force aircraft mission capable. $1,500,000,000 for Army Depot modernization and capacity enhancement. $2 billion for Navy Depot and shipyard modernization and capacity enhancement. $250 million for Air Force Depot modernization and capacity enhancement. $1,391,000,000 for the enhancement of Special Operations Command equipment and readiness. $500 million for National Guard unit readiness. 138. $400 million for Marine Corps readiness and capabilities. $20 million for upgrades to Marine Corps utility helicopters. $310 million for next generation vertical lift, assault, and intra-theater aeromedical evacuation aircraft. $75 million for the procurement of anti-lock braking systems for Army wheeled transport vehicles. $230 million for the procurement of Army wheeled combat vehicles. $63 million for the development of advanced rotary wing engines. $241 million for the development, procurement, and integration of Marine Corps amphibious vehicles. $250 million for the procurement of Army tracked combat transport vehicles. And $98 million for additional Army light rotary wing capabilities. 139. SEC 2011. Improving Department of Defense Bore Wonder Support and Counter Drug Mis-2-3, in addition to amounts otherwise available. There are 4 appropriated to the Secretary of Defense for fiscal year 5, 2025. Out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated to remain available until September 30th, 2029, $75 million. A 00 for activities in support of border operations, including deployment of military personnel, operations and maintenance, counter narcotics and counter 10 transnational criminal organization mission support, the 11 operation of and construction in national defense areas, 12 the temporary detention of migrants on Department of 13 defense installations, 14 SEC 2012 enhancement of military intelligence 1516, in addition to amounts otherwise available. There are 17 appropriated to the Secretary of Defense for fiscal year 2025. Out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise AP19 appropriated to remain available until September 30th, 2029, $22 billion for the enhancement of military intel 21 Legends programs. 22 SEC 0013, Department of Defense Oversight. 23 OSD, in 24 addition to amounts otherwise available. There is a Pro 25 priated to the Inspector General of the Department of the 26. 140. Defense for fiscal year 2025 out of any money in the trees. 1 year not otherwise appropriated, $10 million, to remain 2 available through September 30th, 2029, to carry out this 3 section. The Inspector Gen 5 Aero shall monitor Department of Defense activities for 6 which funding is appropriated in this title, including 7 programs with mutual technological depend, 8 NCs, 9 programs with related data management, 10 and data ownership considerations, 11 programs particularly vulnerable to supply 12 chain disruptions and long lead time components, 13 and 14 programs involving classified matters, 15 CM, not later than 30 days 16 after the date of the enactment of this title. The Chair 17 of the Committees on Armed Services of the Senate and 18 House of Representatives shall jointly transmit to the 19 Department of Defense a classified memorandum regarding 20 amounts made available in this title related to classified 21 matters. 22. 141. SEC 20,014. Military Construction Projects Author 1-2. A authorization of A. Funds 3 are hereby authorized to be appropriated for military construction, land acquisition, and military family housing. 5 functions of military department and part of Title 10, United States Code, as specified 7 in this title. 8. Speed, not later than 30 days after 9, the date of the enactment of this title. The Secretary of 10 each military department shall submit to the Committees 11 on Armed Service of the Senate and House of Representatives 12 ADIVs a detailed spending plan by project for all funds 13 made available by this title to be expended on military Con 14 instruction projects. 15 SEC 005 plan required. 16. Not later than 45 days after the 17 date of the enactment of this title, the Secretary of the 18 Fence and the Administrator of the National Nuclear Secu 19 RIDI Agency, as appropriate, shall submit to the Commit 20 Ts on Armed Services of the Senate and the House of 21 Representatives a spending expenditure or operating plan 22 for amounts made available pursuant to this title. Such 23 plan shall include the same level of detail as required for 24, the report submitted under Section 8007 of Division A of 25. 142. The Further Consolidated Appropriations Act 2024. 2 ER, not later than 1 year after the date of enactment of this title, and annually 4 thereafter. The Secretary and the Administrator of the National Nuclear Security Agency, as appropriate, shall submit to the Committees on Armed Services of the Senate 7 and the House of Representatives a report that includes 8 a description of any expenditures made pursuant to the 9 plan required under subsection SEC 20,016. Limitation on availability of funds. 11. The funds made available under this title may not be used to enter in any agreement under which any payment of such funds could be outlaid or disbursed after September 30th, 2034. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Title 3, Committee on Education and Workforce, Subtitle A, Student Eligibility. SEC 30,001, Student Eligibility. G. Section 484 of the Higher 20 Education Act of 1965 is amended 21 to read as follows. 22. B23. A citizen or national of the United 24 States. 25. 143. An alien who is lawfully admitted for permanent residence under the Immigration and Nationality Act. An alien who is a citizen or national of the Republic of Cuba, is the beneficiary of an approved petition under Section 203 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, meets all eligibility requirements for an immigrant visa, but for whom such a visa is not immediately available, is not otherwise inadmissible under Section 212 of such act, and is physically present in the United States pursuant to a grant of parole in furtherance of the commitment of the United States to the minimum level of annual legal migration of Cuban nationals to the United States specified in the U.S. Cuba Joint Communique on Migration, done at New York September 9th, 1994, and reaffirmed in the Cuba United States. 144. Joint Statement on Normalization of Migration, building on the agreement of September 2nd, 9th, 1994, done at New York, May 3rd, 2nd, 1995, or 4. An individual who lawfully resides in 5 the United States in accordance with a COM 6 Pact of Free Association, referred to in Section 7402 of the Personal Responsibility and 8 Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996-9, and ED8 and A. The 11th Amendment made by subsection shall take effect on July 1st, 2025, and shall apply with respect to award year 13, 2025, 2026, and each subsequent award year, as deter 14 mined under the Higher Education Act of 1965. 630. Amount of need, cost of attendance, me 17, cost of college. 18. AN, Section 471 of the Higher 19 Education Act of 1965 is amended 20 by amending paragraph to read as follows. 21. For award year 2025-2026, the cost of 22 attendance of such student, or 23. 145. For award year 2026-2027 and each sub-1 sequent award year, the median cost of college of the 2 program of study of such student minus 3. Cost of attendance of AP program of 4S 5. Determination of cost of attendance 6 of a program of study. 7. IN General. Section 72 of the 8 Higher Education Act of 1965 is amended 10. In paragraph by striking car 11 writing the same academic workload, and in 12 certing enrolled in the same program of 13 study, 14. In paragraph by striking 15 course of study and inserting 16 same program of study and 17. In paragraph by striking 18 program inserting program of 19 study. 20. Effect date. The amendments 21 made by subparagraph shall take effect on July 22nd, 2026, and shall apply with respect to 23 award year 2026, 2027, and each subsequent 24. 146. Award year, as determined under the Higher 1 Education Act of 1965. Section 472 of the High 3-Year Education Act of 1965 is amended 5. By inserting of each program of study 6 at the institution after cost of attendance, 7 and 8. By striking of the institution, and in 9 inserting of such programs of study at the institution. 11. Determination fee. Part F of Title IV of the Higher Education Act 13 of 1965 is amended by inserting after 14 Section 472, brand the following 50 SC 472A determination of median cost of call 1617. G, for the purpose of this title, the 18-term median cost of college, when used with respect to 19 a program of study, offered by one or more institutions 20 of higher education for an award year, means the median 21 of the cost of attendance of the program of study across all institutions of high 23-year education offering such a program of study for the pre-24 seating award year. 25. 147. PSD in this Section 1 and Section 472 in Part D2. In general, the term program of 3 study 4 means an eligible program at an in-5 institution of higher education that is classified 6 by a combination of 7. 1 or more CIP codes, and 8-1 credential level, determined 9 by the credential awarded upon completion of the program, does not include a program of study abroad. The term CIP code means the 6-digit taxonomic identification code assigned by an institution of higher education to a specific program of study at the institution, determined by the institution of higher education in accordance with the classification of instructional programs published by the National Center for Education Statistics. General. The term credential level means the level of degree or other credential awarded by an institution of higher edu. 148. Cash into students who complete a program of study of the institution. Each degree or other credential awarded by an institution shall be categorized by the institution as either undergraduate credential level or graduate credential level. Undergraduate credential. When used with respect to a credential or credential level, the term undergraduate credential includes credentials such as an undergraduate certificate, an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, and a post-baccalaureate certificate, and of Section 484. Graduate credential. When used with respect to a credential or credential level, the term graduate credential includes credentials such as a master's degree, a doctoral degree, a professional degree, and a postgraduate certificate. IN General. Section 480 of the Higher Education Act of 1965 is amended. 149. By striking net value of the in-one searching the following, net value of 2. By striking the period at the end and 4 inserting a semicolon, and 5. By adding at the end the following 6. A family farm on which the family re 7 sides or 8. A small business with not more than 9. 100 full-time or full-time equivalent employees, 10, that is 11 owned and controlled by the family. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. E. The amendments made by paragraph shall take effect on July 1st, 2026, and shall apply with respect to award year 2026, 2027, and each subsequent award year, as determined under the Higher Education Act of 1965. Subtitle B. Loan Limits. SEC 30,011 Loan Limits. Terminations of an RLA. Termination of authority to make subsidized loans to undergraduate STU. Section 455 of the Higher Education. 150. Act of 1965 is amended by 1 adding at the end the following, 2. Termination of authority to 3 make subsidized loans to undergraduate 4. Notwithstanding any provision of 5 this part or part B, except as provided in para 6 graph, for any period of instruction begin 7ing on or after July 1st, 2026, 8. An undergraduate student shall 9 not be eligible to receive a federal Direct 10 Stafford loan under this part. And 11, the maximum annual amount of 12 the direct unsubsidized Stafford 13 loans, such a student may borrow in any 14 academic year, or its equivalent shall be the 16 maximum annual amount for such student 17 determined under paragraph. Termination of authority to make 19 federal direct plus loans to any student 20. Section 455 of the Higher Edu 21 Cashion Act of 1965 is for 22. They're amended by adding at the end the following, 23. Termination of authority to 24 make federal direct plus loans to any 25. 100.
Welcome to Executive Order Watch.
The immigrants have arrived.
I know. I have the package.